India has a vast domestic resource of gold and silver. We all are aware of that. And how do we harness it? To discuss further on this, we now have our theme-based discussion on augmenting domestic sources of gold and silver. And to moderate the session, may I request Mr. Chirag Sheth, Consultant Metal Focus, to join us here. And joining him in the discussion, we request Mr. Nick Spencer, Galaxy Gold Mines and Investment. Mr. Vijay Murthy, CMO, Hindustan Zinc Limited. Mr. Kayur Shah, Muthoot Papachan Group.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a pleasure to moderate a panel with such great luminaries over here. I've got an easy task of moderating, and they've got a much more difficult task of answering the questions. Since the start of the millennium, the global demand for metals have outpaced the supply. And this has led to an unprecedented rally in commodity prices. In response to this, companies around the world have put in billions of dollars in ramping up their mining as well as refining capacity. And this is not just in traditional mining areas like US, Canada, and Australia, but most of these companies have also gone to newer frontiers. In response to this, Indian mining has been lagged behind compared to its global peers. Our contribution of mining to GDP has been just 1.2% compared to 5 to 6% in some of the major mining economies of the world. Focusing on the precious metal space, India has got a long tradition of being one of the largest consumers of gold in the world. And however, in spite of having some great geology, which is compared to Australia and parts of South America, our production of gold has been just 2 tons per annum. However, there's been a lot of work which has been done by the Geological Survey of India, and in order to augment these resources into mines, what we faced is a problem from bureaucracy. We face problem from slow mine, licenses, and all these things has affected our mine production. And I'm sure Nick will touch on some of these areas in his presentation shortly. As a result of this lack of domestic supply, we are now the largest importer of gold, and that has affected our trade deficit. In order to avoid this situation of a worsening trade deficit, we actually need to look at gold mining and silver mining, seriously. The situation is much better in silver compared to gold. Indian silver mines have produced some 436 tons of silver. The largest contribution of this is Hindustan Zinc. So what is interesting is that there is such a contrast between gold mining scenario in India and silver mining scenario in India. And in order to reinvigorate Indian mining, the government has taken a lot of steps, and they've tried to create a more pro-business driven policies. However, in order to this to translate into actual mining, what requires is investment. And in order to bring this investment into the country, we require foreign companies with their expertise. Apart from this, what we also require is investment in human capital, investment in technology, and ease of doing business, something that the government is very serious on. Another important part of the gold supply chain is scrap supply, or old gold that comes into the market. For a jeweler, scrap supply is usually 20 to 30% of his supply. And if you look at the Indian market, on an average, 150 to 200 tons of scrap comes back to the market every year. Just like the jewelry business, the Indian scrap business is also undergoing a change. With more organized players, with more corporates entering the market, this business is becoming more transparent. This business is becoming more profitable for the consumers. And I'm sure that with the advent of GST, there is going to be a lot of changes which is also going to happen in this business. The government is also focused on getting the gold out of the pillows, through its gold monetization scheme. However, for that scheme to be a success, a lot more has to be done, and the scheme still needs a lot of working. During a panel discussion, we'll try to focus on these topics, and I'm looking forward to a meaningful discussion and enlightening one. With that, I would like to invite Nick on the stage, who will talk about the possibilities of Indian gold mining.
Thank you, Chiragji. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been asked just to give a quick 5 minutes on the facts of the gold mining industry here in India. I get asked one question a lot. There's no gold mines in India, Nick. Please tell us there are. And I generally try and explain that there are plenty of gold mines here. There's abundant gold resources here. And what we've done, so we've been here for 12 years. We are a gold mining consortium from Australia. We've got a group of very experienced gold explorers, geologists, and very experienced gold miners. So over the last 12 years, we've spent at least 100 crore and 12 years defining assets, doing pre-feasibilities and looking at every gold prospect here. And this is our finding. And this is the question. 20 gold mines in India. To be or not to be? And that's what we're discussing today. Okay, in one page, this is what the geology of India says. We are actually sister geologies. We were joined together, and we've colour-coded it in green. Green, why? Greenstone is the host rock. We have the same geology. We have the same structure. We have the same age. They're both 2 billion years old. India has been mining gold for 5,000 years. You are historically one of the biggest gold producers in the world. The Egyptians came here and mined here. And that's with no technology. So by applying new technology today, there is huge potential. We have found in 12 years 300 mineralised projects. Our data fills many rooms. So this is very real opportunity and challenge for you all. But the big figure there at the bottom is 600 tonnes. As of today, there is 600 tonne of gold defined under your feet. Defined and verified. Of that 600 tonne, 100 tonne is actually defined at reserve, which is the top level, which means it's ready to mine. So these are just some of the facts that are there. And you know the facts of the big numbers in that top left. You consume 800 to 900 tonne a year, and as of today, you only produce 1.5 tonne. It's a huge differential, which can be narrowed. And that's the Hutty gold mine, which is down in Karnataka, who we're also talking to. So you can see also on the left is Africa. Africa used to be joined to India. Australia was joined to India. And that geology goes straight through the three countries. Africa's producing over 300 tonne. We're producing 250 tonne. So we've got 50 gold mines in Australia in exactly the same sort of area, geology, structure. And we've now confirmed that. So the geological setting allows you to be a gold miner. We now have to figure out how we make that happen. I just want to show one other point here in the bottom right. There was a gold rush here 15 to 20 years ago when your mining policy allowed for 100% FDI, and they did come, as did we. There were 20 people like me in India grabbing gold lease sites all over India. Look at that figure. 400,000 square kilometres of gold potential ground was issued to explorers in a reconnaissance permit form. Reconnaissance permit is the first thing you need to be an explorer. Then it goes to prospecting licence. It allows you to design a mine. And ML, the mining licence, the third step, takes unfortunately up to 5 or 6 years, but that allows you to build a mine. 400,000. Of that 400,000, only 500 kilometres has been converted to a PL, the second step. So it's all caught up in the system. It's all latent and idle, and to progress it to ML has only been done once in this country for a gold mining licence. So they're the facts very quickly. That's 12 years' work summarised into one page. It's got a delay. So this one's not my work. This is the government's work. So for the last 15 years, we've been feeding information into the government to show them what is actually underneath, what is in the ground. This is their chart, this is their work, and we're working on a few of these projects, but over time we know every single person that owns those 20 projects. And you can see the geology there, so you're looking clearly at the gold dots. The gold dots are defined gold resources in the ground. You can see that most of them are in Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. 50% of your gold in this country is in Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. There are obviously other good reserves there. There's one up in Rajasthan and there's quite a bit in the northeast. So these are all real defined. This is the government's work. We've helped them put it together. This is their new goal for 20 new gold mines. All of these are owned by someone, so you don't have to go and start again. You don't have to auction it. You've just got to go and help these people progress these licenses. There's 700 tonne of gold in those yellow dots, and we've hardly started doing exploration work yet. Okay, the rest will be in the discussion. So these are sort of the two slides that try and summarise what we're trying to do. But I'll just show you quickly the two key areas, which we'll get into now, is permitting. Unfortunately, the government's doing their best, but unfortunately, we are buried underneath iron ore mining, monstrous. Coal mining, monstrous. Gold mining, we're an infant, which is why we now associate ourselves with the gold industry, with you guys, because we're the start of the supply chain. Everybody at this conference, most people at this conference want gold doré. What do we produce? Gold doré. So we have to work together and jointly develop those 20 gold mines and push it through the permitting process. Just that number 2 point, there's only one gold mining lease given to a private party in India. And we were a joint venture partner there, and we helped them do it. It took 6 years. That's unsustainable. I was very encouraged yesterday by the Joint Secretary and some of his comments. I think engaging with the Ministry of Finance is key. Of the 20 gold mines I talked about, I'm only aware that 2 or 3 of them are moving. There are 17 of the top 20 gold mines in this country stuck in system, and there is next to no exploration. $3 million of exploration, and you've got $25 billion of gold sitting in the ground. So there's no exploration happening in this country at the moment. We need to incentivise people like us to come and do that. You actually spoke about that yesterday. I think the work that's been done now on the new gold mining policy, or the new gold policy, which will include the gold mining policy, is fundamental to this market, this whole industry opening up. As I said, most gold explorers have actually left India. They've gone to places like Ghana, Congo, and other places. So the MMDR needs to be a more refined document, but we've just got to focus, I think, on those 20 gold mines, and away we go. Last slide. So we'll discuss this. There's China. Just, if China can do it, India, you can do it. This is what China did. They went from 10 tonne to 450 tonne in 30 years. Why? Because they had to, because they were consuming so much gold. Your geology is better than China. China are now the biggest producer of gold in the world, from 10 tonne to 450 tonne, surpassing South Africa and Australia, America, and so on. They did it by fast-tracking of permits, give it to the experts, and obviously the government incentives. This is what we're going to talk about now, which is the mining policy and how we can show some leadership with the Ministry of Finance. Having a roadmap on those top 20 projects, fundamental. And the other thing I want to say, this can only happen by joint development of projects. We can't do it alone. The refiners need the gold. We need to work together to build 20 gold mines in this country. So that is my mission. So these aren't all our projects. We've only got a few. I'm really helping the industry to try and build these gold mines by engaging with industry groups like yourselves and helping our access collectively into government. I think that is the only way. So anybody that wants to share that mission, don't be scared to connect. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Nick. Vijay, would you like to comment on the silver mining scenario in India?
Thank you, Chirag, and ladies and gentlemen, very warm good morning. I think, though the name of this conclave is the one on the gold convention, but I think among the precious metals, silver bears an equal footing. And India is a substantial importer of silver, as we are all aware. And we from Hindustan Zinc are doing our little part to help the country save foreign exchange, sort of develop the in-house mining, very much in line with what Nick's been saying, that how do you exploit your own resources. So Hindustan Zinc, as you are all aware, I don't think requires much explanation. It's a company which is 64% owned by Vedanta Group and 30% still by the government of India, and the balance 6% by institutions and retail on the public side. We have had a fabled growth in terms of what one can think in terms of a stellar success story in terms of a growth of silver production through in-house sources. As most of you would be aware, Hindustan Zinc per se is a zinc and lead producer, but fortunately for us, there is silver which comes along with lead. So we have had a significant focus on increasing our silver production, which we believe is not only in the interest of the nation in terms of import substitution, but also exceptionally important for the company from a growth perspective. So we have grown in the last 5 years. We have more than doubled our silver production. We were somewhere in the ballpark of 200 to 220 tons per annum in year 2012, and now 2017, FY17 exit, we were at 454 tons. So this has been on back of various initiatives. Maybe I'll share those in due course, maybe just across the panel. So.
Thank you. Keyur, if you could just share your experience with regards to the retail scrap market and how as an organized player.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, actually. I represent the Muthoot Papachan group, the blue Muthoot, because there are various Muthoots. We have recently ventured into the scrap recycling business. 1.5 years back, we launched the first retail branch called the Muthoot Gold Point, where we offer a very scientific, transparent and a standardized platform for end consumers to sell their gold. My view is, see, the scrap market is large in India. Roughly 150 to 200 tons per annum is what is being estimated as Chirag would have mentioned earlier. But I think the challenge in the industry is in terms of transparency. And I think that's something which hoping, I think the government has given a very clear vision to the industry that India needs to reduce its over-dependence on gold imports. So like Nick was saying, mining, definitely there's a huge potential. The same way, scrap recycling in a formalized manner is, I think, the need of the industry. And that's something where we got into it. We had been thinking about it since a long time. And it's been a great experience because we figured out all the people who walk into our branches. We have currently 10 branches and one mobile van, a van which we started in Mumbai as a pilot, where 97% conversion happened. That means people walking in who wants to sell their gold, they obviously have surveyed the market. They usually visit a few local players, get an estimate of what is the value of the gold they are going to get, and then they walk into us and they are pleasantly surprised. They have a great experience because I think the key things which we've done and which we are hopeful that many other large organized sector players get into it is empowering the customer, empowering the end consumer with information about his or her own gold. So in terms of the purity, in terms of the charges which you are going to take. So for example, I think it's a common knowledge where anybody in India wants to sell their gold, they face a haircut of 5 to 15%, which is huge. But when they come to us, we tell them it is 3% is what our charge is. So whatever the purity, we'll do through XRF. If the customer is not satisfied, we will, and sure that they want to sell, then we'll suggest that why don't you melt it and then we'll do the purity through XRF. And then we tell them 3%, they're extremely happy. So I think slowly we are moving towards that direction. The mobile van which we've started as a pilot in Mumbai, currently is just operating a bit of North Mumbai. That's also been a great learning. There again, it's our obviously communication to end consumers is we come to your doorstep if you want to sell gold. But it's a huge learning there also because still selling gold or pledging gold is a social taboo in certain parts of the country. So we do get calls from end consumers who have visited the van generally. They're very happy. But they say, okay, when they want to sell, they'll call, say, okay, can you come, but can you park 3 buildings away? Because we don't want our neighbors to see that we are entering the van and selling. So I think these are learnings, but definitely this is a way forward for the industry. More organized sector players need to come. The recycling needs to get more formalized. I think that's something which I would urge the industry that we need to move forward there.
Thank you. I think it's an interesting point that you make about, people tell you to park a bit far away because of the social stigma, and we'll touch on that a bit later. Nick, coming to you, if you look at since early 1990s, since the time India's economic liberalization, Western Australia, which shares geology with India, has produced some 5,000 tons of of gold, whereas we are, an extremely, small in comparison to that. What do you think are the main problem areas? Is it bureaucracy? Is it, or is it funding? Or is it technology? What do you think are the biggest challenges, because you mentioned about 100 ton of my reserve ready. Now, the one question that comes to my mind, if the 100 tons of reserve is ready, why are we not doing anything on that?
Yes, that is the question. So from experience, we're finding there's a couple of things. The government, as I said, is trying hard with limited resources. For example, GSI is out there trying to do all the work. They're trying to do all the exploration themselves. You know, the MECL are doing their own feasibilities. That's not the government's job. We will come in. If you have a good project, you will get funding, the expertise will come. So the government, all they have to do is have high quality data, which we're actually happy to help them put together, and efficient permitting. No favours, just move the paper quicker. 6 years won't happen. So it's really just working with government to help that system move according to law and the policy. But just remember, iron ore and coal will bury us every day of the week. So if you try and see a mines minister or a mines secretary, it'll generally get put to the bottom of the pile. So it's priority, the process is there, but I think it's understanding. And I believe this engagement with the Ministry of Finance is absolutely fundamental. And I think this gold policy is absolutely fundamental. If you don't have a plan, we're not going to get there. So I think, and then a roadmap. Having goals like that, the government's goal of 100 tonne per year is a great goal, but there's no plan. So we have to have a plan.
Would you say that, is just rewriting the mining codes, is that important, or the entire book needs to be rewritten? And probably the government needs, as you pointed out, why is gold not as a priority sector? Probably that will help funding. So would you say that the entire system needs to be changed? Because I'm sure the government has talked about ease of doing business, single window clearance. But do you think that a little bit more needs to be done to bring in investment? Because is investment the big problem?
No, I don't think investment is. I think if the system's working, the money always follows a good project. But if the system's not moving, the money will never come. So I think the mining policy should be better, but we can live with it now. Those 20 projects should be prioritised and run in parallel. Don't wait to upgrade the mining policy. There's perfect mining policies in South Africa, Canada, Australia, South America. You could go and copy them tomorrow, but that will take time. They've just released the new mining policy. It's not perfect, but we can live with it for mining. For exploration, it's just shut down. Every explorer's left because of the new mining policy. But for mining, all the licenses are out there. We just need to have a roadmap on every one collectively. You can't have 20 of me going and knocking on the door of the mines minister. It's just not going to work. And the last thing you've got to have is good partners. And if you don't have a big, strong partner that's been working in each state for decades, they're not going to give a mining license to Nick Spencer. So it's really, we've totally changed our model. We've actually pulled out of London, we've pulled out of Australia. We're now set up all over India, Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, with partners in every state. And we're approaching our whole licensing management. So we can live with the system. It's about priority. And I think working with the gold industry, not the mining industry.
Absolutely. Vijay, coming to you, Hindustan, you spoke about the ramping up production from Hindustan Zinc. The silver production has virtually more than doubled. What has been the reason? Is it, kind of targeting silver-rich deposits, or have you suddenly found out, a magic wand to increase your production? What has Hindustan Zinc done right compared to some of the other guys?
Okay, I like the term magic wand, but unfortunately we haven't had one. So, but I think, just trying to juxtapose with what Nick's been also saying, the attitude, the effort, the capital formation, the skills, all are there in the private sector in India. Right. Let's be very clear. For example, Hindustan Zinc is typically the same old PSU way back in 2000, 2001, 2 till divestment, which was producing 80,000 tons of zinc, hardly knew anything about silver. But private sector entrepreneurship and risk-taking capabilities, coupled with a significant amount of focus on value addition, is what has made the difference. So just to take the stellar example of our own company, silver was something which was known from some time. But there's been a very clear focus, how do we harness silver? And more importantly, as you know, Hindustan Zinc based in Rajasthan is a combination of typically 4 to 5 mines. We have our flagship mine Rampura Agucha, which is open cast and underground. Then we have Rajpura Dariba, Zawar and Sindesar Kurd. Sindesar Kurd has been the game changer. As we have been exhausting our Rampura Agucha open cast, now we have significantly ramped up underground production from our mine which is called Sindesar Kurd. And from our ore production of 1 million ton, we have expanded it in just last 3 years. We have expanded it to 4 million tons of ore production from underground, and now the target is to take it to 6 million tons. This is one mine which is exceptionally silver rich, which has been a turning point for Hindustan Zinc's performance. So, which has been the cornerstone. So, fundamentally, it's been chasing a good ore body, which has valuable byproducts. So, I would rather prefer to call it a co-product rather than a byproduct in terms of silver, which adds significantly to our product profile as well as our profitability. And more importantly, a significant amount of effort which has gone in research and development in terms of how do we improve recoveries, how do we make sure that we are using the right process techniques to extract the amount of silver. So all of this has gone a long way in enhancing our silver portfolio.
So what are your targets for next couple of years in terms of silver production? Given the fact that Indian silver market is also expanding, there is a sustainable growing demand that we're seeing in India from the jewelry side, from the silverware side. What are your targets for silver production in India?
Exactly. I think silver, we still are, in a volume terms, we have grown from whatever 200 tons to 500 odd tons, and we'll be probably expecting somewhere around 550 ballpark, give and take around that number this year. The important thing is that still we are probably at an average of, Chirag, correct me if I'm wrong, 5,000 tons average silver import, which India does every year. I think we are still 10%. But we do have a significant resource potential to take it forward. So, and as we have previously stated from Hindustan Zinc side, we do make some big, hairy, audacious goals for ourselves. We have been talking of 1,000-ton silver production. So, importantly, we do have the resource base. And just to put it in perspective, on a reserve front, Hindustan Zinc has a clear, I'm not talking of the resource part of it, out of the R&R, only the first R, which is the reserve. We have more than 10 years. We have close to probably 12 years of visibility in terms of our silver production. And in terms of lead and zinc, it's approximately 10 years. And if you include the resource part of it, probably we go maybe high into 30, 35 years kind of horizon. So what we see is basically we are chasing our target of 1,000 tons silver number, which we believe is sort of a magical number, a big morale booster for ourselves, and probably do something like 20 to 25% of India's demand.
Sure.
That's the longer term target.
That's interesting. Keyur, coming to you, as India's one of the first organized scrap collectors, and you mentioned about some interesting challenges that you face in terms of educating people. I've got actually two-part question. First is, how are you able to, harmonize the synergy between the Muthoot, the gold loan, business and your scrap collection business? And secondly, how is GST going to change the way you're doing business,
Sure. See, Muthoot as a group, we've been obviously known for loan against gold, and that's how we've made that popular. In fact, I think I would go to say the gold loan companies like ours have actually helped monetize the gold holdings to a great extent. And that's something which I think the government recognizes. And that's the reason it became very natural for us to get into the other side of the business in terms of if that customer wants to sell gold. And see, I've joined the group since last 4 years, but the way we had visualized, and which is what probably could be the roadmap also for most other organized players or for India, I started first manufacturing and selling gold jewelry to these customers through our branches. Now I'm buying scrap. Ultimately, see, just now I'm sourcing gold from outside and then making jewelry. But ultimately, I would want to create a full circle wherein we are buying scrap, use the same gold to make jewelry, give it to them, that same jewelry, they come back and pledge against this thing. So that is the model which probably, and that's in sync with what the government wants. One other thing, I think jewelers and gold loan companies like us, we have been the front face for the customers as far as gold is concerned. And there, the trust factor, we've probably garnered a lot of trust over generations, and we do have an important role to play. So I think naturally, if such customer-facing entities get into scrap collection, makes a lot of sense. And just to add, slightly deviating, but see, the gold monetization scheme which the government has launched, it's not seen that great success, compared to the gold sovereign bond scheme. one of the challenges, there are many challenges, one of the challenges in that scheme is the collection centers. The collection centers still now defined by the government in the scheme is hallmarking centers. Until now, these hallmarking centers were B2B endpoints, which customers never knew. They had to transform, or they are transforming to become B2C, but still that trust factor is not there. And the locations are not so popular. So I think that's, again, coming back here, because even if GMS is to be popular, or the scrap buying in the formalized manner, jewelers and gold loan companies should have been included and become the face for this initiative. The second part to your question about GST, I think we welcome that move. There are challenges which we also face as an organized player, because we cannot fight against people who are just giving cash for gold. And that is still happening, right? So there are customers, as I said, see, once a customer walks in, 97% conversion rate is there, which is great, and then the word of mouth spreads. But there are, upfront the customer comes and says, I need cash. We say, sorry, we don't give, we only give up to 10,000 rupees in cash. Balance, we'll give it to you via bank transfer, and most of the time we do is IMPS, so the customer instantly sees the transfer and gets a text message on the mobile phone. But they insist on that, and others are giving that. We can't, I think, fight with it. But I'm quite confident with GST, hopefully a lot of players get organized, and then there's a level playing field in it. Other aspect of GST also which is impacting us, see, the government had clarified that buying of scrap, the 3% GST to be paid for unregistered players is not required. But there's no clarity. How do we know that person who's selling the gold to us is registered or unregistered? So as a policy, we upfront, obviously there's a cash flow issue in terms of working capital, but we do pay GST upfront. And then we have to yet see how the credit flows in.
But I think my understanding is, as a consumer, if I come to sell jewelry, my own jewelry, I'm not supposed to pay 3% GST.
You're not supposed to, but how do I know whether you are an individual consumer not registered? You were probably a pawnbroker, you were a small-time jeweler. We don't know whether you're selling your jewelry or the definition is a supplier. If it's a supply, then we have to pay GST.
Yes, I think you make a very, very interesting point in that sense, and I think there is a gray area over there. How do you decide somebody's registered or unregistered?
But just last point on that, I think very confident, because with these changes happening regulation-wise as well as the industry changing, people are moving slowly into organized sector. Just one anecdotal example. There was one customer, we had started this initiative 1 year and 9 months ago, first branch in Coimbatore. One customer came in at that time, and we still remember that customer. One of our first customers wanted to buy a house and wanted to make a down payment. So we came with the gold which they had saved over the few years, and sold by saying, no, he insisted on cash, and we said no. Because the house he was buying, there was a cash component to be paid. So he didn't want to. We let go of it. Just 2 months ago, the same customer visited us. That means after 1.5 years. And he wanted, it was a house, a small time, they wanted to do renovation, or they wanted to extend one room or something like that. And this time he insisted he wants, money by the banking channel. So it is a sign of things are changing in the market, even at consumer level, because this was after demonetization, GST coming in. So even the real estate industry is probably transforming. So I'm quite hopeful that, this scrap market will come in the formalized sector.
Yeah, I think that is also something which we've seen. Another question that I had in mind, and you've got a lot of branches in rural India and as well as in cities. Do you see any difference in the way a rural consumer behaves, compared to an urban consumer when it comes to sell his scrap gold? Is there a particular reason why they come to sell, or are there any particular trends that you see, if you could just share with the audience?
Yeah, see, we have 3,500 branches. 70% of them are in semi-urban and rural areas. See, rural, I think it's true, the economists have been using this term since a long time, Bharat versus India. So that is Bharat, that is the, indigenous market where those consumers, and see, we cater to the low income segment consumers. That's where, Muthoot is known to service these kind of customers. They are not affected much by the changes in stock markets. They're not much affected by regulation. Like, for example, GST. Oh, see, before GST, demonetization. Obviously, everybody was in a state of shock when that demonetization happened. Industry also had to go through a lot of challenges. For us, I think November, when it happened, 2-3 weeks, yeah, obviously we faced that challenge. People were not coming to the branches. But from December onwards, we actually started doing very well. And I think it took the industry 3 months before things became a bit normal. So that was a reflection of how consumers, they don't bother much. Because again, see, one, they're low income consumers, they didn't have much black money or anything to hide. And second, these people are cut off. They don't care about overall, say, as I said, the rupee exchange rate, custom duties. They don't care how much, 10%. They probably don't even know. Yeah. For them, it is the end price of gold. Sure. So it doesn't matter whether it was 2% or 10%, whether it's going to come down. They'll think the price of gold has come down or gone up. And that's fine. In fact, the price of gold going up, it exudes a lot more confidence in them for gold as an asset class. Because Indians, especially the rural Indians, have always believed gold is a time-tested asset class in India. So prices going up, they think is very positive.
Sure. Nick and Vijay, this question is to both of you all. It's a two-part question. And the first one is, we've seen a contrasting trend in gold mining in India and silver mining in India. I'd like to have your comment on that. Why is, that reason? And second one is, what are the interesting projects that both of you all are working on over the next couple of years that is likely to, come on board? Vijay, if you could just, start with it.
I think Nick made the very valuable point in terms of the governmental clarity on policies. I think at least quite a lot of credit to Mr. Piyush Goyal since he has taken charge on the Mines Ministry. At least the number of licenses which are being given out or even the auctions happening has increased, so which is substantially good. So most importantly, I think it's quite to do with the macro environment in which the governmental policy is, how well the government is supporting private sector entrepreneurship to take an active part in development. More so in terms of building the geological data. India doesn't have, unlike South Africa and Australia, India unfortunately doesn't have a well-defined, highly with high data integrity. You don't have all the geological data so that you can go after a certain resource. So you need to have reconnaissance permits. The timeline from RP to PL to then onwards to mining license is a huge process. So I think that's one thing which has sort of held us back. Probably government needs to seriously focus on how do we harness our in-house resources. And more importantly, maybe from the Hindustan Zinc side, we have had a very structured exploration program. We have spent substantial money. For example, last year we probably did about something like 75 kilometers of exploration drilling, which is huge, spending about close to 55-60 crore rupees. So this kind of focused approach with best-in-class technologies, online core sampling methods, etc., and a very strong exploration team with a lot of expats in it, which bringing in the knowledge base. I think it's a focused approach of each of the companies which is relevant to make this happen. So, and we are quite committed to make this happen. So, and that's where our target is to grow our silver production.
Sure. Nick?
No, well said. I agree with that. I've got 2 points. The first one is macro government. I don't think we should micromanage this. I think the engagement on the policy and the government prioritising gold. The minute they prioritise, the systems will look after it. And I think the Ministry of Finance is key to that. And on the more exciting projects, I think you're going to be surprised. Like, I can actually sit here and confidently say that you will have 20 gold mines in India. I can say that confidently as a professional expert in my industry. What I can't say is how long that will take. But you will have it one day. It's not going to sit under your feet forever. So what's exciting about that? There are 2 or 3 projects in that top 20 that are world class. Now, you already know one of them, Kolar Goldfields. So I'll just put that to rest. The Joint Secretary at the last Bullion Federation specifically asked what happened to Kolar. 99% of people in India think Kolar is dead, buried and finished. I can say personally, because I've committed 10 years of my life to helping the people in Kolar, that mine must be revived. Unfortunately, it's a political hot potato because the centre is BJP and the state is Congress, and therefore it's simply not moving again and won't until that changes. But we have done significant work. We've invested over 20 crore. We've taken it to Cabinet. We've taken it to Supreme Court. Just revive it. We've done all the feasibilities. We've got all the data. That mine must be revived. People, there is plenty of gold left there. Not plenty. It's complicated. It's difficult. The people are ready to help. The whole workforce is there. The skills are there. We've offered to bring in some technology. So projects like that are very rare in the world today. That is in every geological textbook, and it's known to the world, and it should never die. So that's one. But there's 2 or 3 others. The one in Rajasthan's outstanding. There's some in Andhra Pradesh. Hutty gold mines needs, we spoke yesterday, someone said, Hutty needs to be expanded, modernised, and I think the industry, us, any other party should help them do it. So there's many exciting gold projects, and I think showing this mining industry, the whole supply chain, we need to produce locally, local doré.
Yeah.
That's our goal, that's our collective goal, and there's plenty of opportunity to do it if we address it properly.
Keu, there's an audience question for you. We'll move to the audience question. There's an audience question for you. It says, what is the size of the scrap market in the world? So I'll just answer this question. We estimate the Indian scrap market to be anywhere between 150 to 200 tons in size, out of which about 50 to 60% of share is for gold, that is what we call as exchange, and 40 to 50% share is for gold sold for cash. But Keu, there's a very interesting question which talks about what is the share of organized players like Muthoot and MMTC PAMP currently in the market?
Probably less than 1%.
But and how would you see it over the next 5 years? What is your outlook on that?
I think probably, say, MMTC, PAMP, Muthoot, we've gotten, there have been some regional players since we started in, say, Coimbatore, Bangalore. Regional players have come up, which are organized to some extent. I think it's easy for us in 5 years' time to garner 5 to 10% market share.
5 to 10% market.
Which is not bad.
Chirag,
Yes.
for last so many years, you have been making a report. And even WGC also uses your report.
Yes.
You have been reporting more than 1/3 as recycling.
Yes.
So how would you say that this particular quantity has gone into the market? You know, you have one more figure that you report scrap which is exchanged for cash.
Yes.
If it is with the same jeweler and
Yes.
does not enter the market,
Yes.
it's not called scrap sale.
Yes. Yes.
Now, would you call this unorganized, or how would you see improvement in that system after GST?
That's a very, very interesting question. And I think there are 2 things. And something that Keyur pointed out is that what is the problem that organized players has been facing? One of the problems that organized players has been facing is that they are not able to give cash out when somebody comes to sell, which has been the case that a lot of unorganized players do that. I think with the GST, where the problem is going to be is that lack of definition between what is unregistered and what is registered. How does a jeweler or how does a person who is buying scrap ascertains that the gold that I'm coming to the market is my gold? I think that is the problem. It could also be that, a lot of unofficial supply can be termed as scrap.
Okay, I'll again come back to my question, Chirag.
Yeah.
What's the figure you will put to gold coming into the jeweler from the consumer?
Right.
And I call them organized.
Yeah.
Would you put it 350 tons? You'll put it something like 100 tons, or you'll put it higher?
So, I don't...
And
so
not exchange for money. I am not going by your report.
150 to 200 tons that we call it goes to jewelers, goes to, people like Keyur, goes to refineries in that sense. It's very difficult to put a number on how much of it would have just gone to a jeweler in that sense. But I would still say the jewelers have got the largest market share. It's very difficult to put a hard number on. Keyur, if you want to add something on that.
I just want to share certain, again, experiences at a ground level which probably could answer Bhargav's question. Of late, we've started getting small-time jewelers also coming to us to sell their scrap. And this, I think, is a GST impact. This is just a 1-month thing, because earlier they would give cash, take the gold from the consumers. These small-time jewelers may not use the entire gold to manufacture jewelry because they're a very small shop, but they earlier used to dispose it off without anybody knowing. Now they want that input credit there. So that is one change which we're seeing. Second also is gold loan companies. And that's how I said how we got this idea, because one, from the macro vision which the government had laid for the industry to reduce over-dependence of India on gold imports. Also because gold loan companies, there are a lot of defaults happening. And it's a very seasonal in terms of link to gold prices. Prices going down, our default rate goes up. Now these customers, as per RBI, we have to auction them, auction the gold. But you have to wait for a considerable amount of time, almost 12 months before. So it's a loss. So what we used to do and what those customers also think, they instead of getting into that auction, they would want to do a settlement. Now that settlement, that gold again comes back as scrap. And now there's a formalized way to dispose that scrap of. So I think these changes, Bhargav, it doesn't answer fully, but the market is moving towards getting organized with the small players also.
Sir, sorry, there's just time for one question, and Vijay, I want to ask this question which has come from the audience. On silver, how does the market price of Hindustan Zinc silver vis-a-vis imported silver, how do you compare it, the domestic silver that you all sell compared to imported ones?
I think that's very straightforward. We produce domestically, but all our sales are linked on the LBMA price, basically on an imported landed parity. So it's straightforward imported landed parity pricing which we do. So, and we are able to generate decent premiums in the market, and we have a very significant approach to develop an end user base. So we just don't want our metal to get into investment forms or whatever, but so we develop long-term relationship with consumers who actually are going to use it for industrial and fabrication purposes.
Thank you very much, and thank you, gentlemen, for the panel discussion. Thank you.
Well, thank you to our moderator, Mr. Chirag Sheth. Thank you to all our panelists for that very, very captivating session that we just had and enjoyed some amazing amount of significant revelations, and we certainly hope that the gold miners are going to stay in India and not leave us. With that, I request Mr. Chirag Sheth to kindly felicitate our panelists with a memento. To Mr. Nick Spencer. To Mr. Vijay Murthy. To Mr. Kayur Shah. And at this moment, we'd like to invite our Honorable Minister of Mines from Democratic Republic of Congo, Mr. Bulindi Apollinaire, to join us here on the dais. And we request you to kindly present a memento to Mr. Chirag Sheth.